Duke Ellington once said, all music is folk music because we're all folk. We separate things. And the reality is that there is only one presence and one power, God the good. There's only oneness. That we have a lot of different ideas about things, but the reality is there is only one. And what is that one? That one is love. Everything in this universe can be reduced to love. Jane Elizabeth Hart last week asked that question. If love is the answer, then what can be the question? And what is in your heart right now? What do you need in your life? The answer is always love. The answer is always to simplify all of the complexities of life to something basic, and that something is love. Einstein said that the sign of a true scientific theory is that it's simple. When you get a choice between a complicated and a simpler theory, you pick the simpler one because it's more elegant, because that's where truth is found. Truth is found in that which is more basic, which is more simple, which is more practical. You don't think of love as practical, but it is. Because when you put love into action, what happens? Things work better. Where in your life can you put more love to work? Where can you put that yearning, that aspiration of your heart into service? This recent Pope has been saying some rather subversive things. And I think I shared part of his quote, but I want to share the whole thing, because it was disavowed the next day by the spokesman of the Vatican. I mean, what are they afraid of? The Pope's going to get mad? He is the Pope, but he said, the Lord has redeemed all of us, not just Catholics. Everyone. Father, the atheists, even the atheists, everyone. We are created children in the likeness of God. We all have a duty to do good. And this commandment for everyone to do good, I think, is a beautiful path towards peace. And if we, each doing our own part, if we do good to others, if we meet there doing good, and we go slowly, gently, little by little, we will make that culture of encounter. We need that so much. We must meet one another doing good. But I don't believe, Father. I am an atheist. But do good. We will meet one another there. Subversive. And true. Don't you know this to be true in your heart? Doesn't everybody know this to be true in their hearts? Your heart is a touchstone. You want to know what's true? You want to discern what's true? You want to be intuitively guided? Get in touch with what's in your heart, because that's your touchstone. Remember, in the old days of when they're trying to determine whether something was real gold or not, they would get this stone out called a touchstone, and they would take the gold and they would strike it against the stone, and if it left a little gold there, it was truly gold. If the touchstone didn't have any gold on it, it wasn't real. You have a touchstone. You have something that can discern the truth in your heart, and that is the love that is in your heart. Your heart is the touchstone, and you can get in touch with it right here and right now. And that's why we gather together in community. That's why we don't just sit at home and twiddle our thumbs and do it all by ourselves. That's why we join in community, because the place that we hold in common is that place of love in our hearts. You know, a Venn diagram where you've got two circles and there's that part in the middle that's shared. What is that? That is love. That is the Christ in you. You have gray hair. You have dark hair. You have longer hair than I do. You're wearing glasses. I'm not wearing glasses. You're wearing a skirt. We all have different backgrounds. We're all different from each other. But the place where we hold something in common is that place of love, that place in our hearts. So how do we get there? How do we find that place? Because that's where all the answers are. All the people who have had terminal illnesses disappear, according to Harvard, had this transformation where they got in touch with that place and all of their values turned upside down. Where is that place? Well, it's inside of you. And there were, once upon a time, you remembered it. You remembered who you were. There's that story of the older child that they were a little afraid of jealousy, who the parents would kind of watch around the new baby. Maybe the child was 4 or so, and the parents got busy, and then things got too quiet, so they rushed into the nursery, and there was the 4-year-old whispering, Do you remember who you are? Tell me about it. I'm beginning to forget. When did you forget? I remember when I was 2 years old. That was my first conscious memory. And my mom must have been nearby watching me, but I don't remember that. I remember running, and suddenly in the middle of running, remembering that there was something I'd forgotten, something that I promised myself I would never forget. And I was so stunned by that shock that I fell down and I skinned my knee, and I looked down and I was crying. But I wasn't crying because of my skinned knee. I was crying because I'd forgotten. And that was the thing, I'd forgotten because it came back. It began to come back when I was in the Youth of Unity, and they told me I had to write prayer material, meditation guides. And that was part of my job as a regional chaplain. And so I would have to write one for every week. And I sat down dutifully and wrote them, and they were empty. They didn't have any life. And even at the age of 14 and 15, I could tell it didn't have any real meaning. And I realized I have to get quiet. So I went to the park at the end of the street where there was a stream that went through it. And I found out later, many years later, that this was the location that was the sacred spot for the Ohlone tribe, of the Native Americans in that area. There was an energy that imbued the soil there. You could discern it. It was amazing. And I would sit and wait until a thought would come. And when that thought would come, I would write it down. And that's how I learned how to meditate. I'd take an inspirational book of my dad's, and actually it was The Search for God by Edgar Cayce, and I would sit and get quiet. And I remembered at 9 o'clock a haiku that I wrote sitting there. Cobweb of bare branch with scented wind is my prey. I am the spider. What does that mean? People were kind of frowning when I said that. That means that you wait. And you wait to receive. You wait to see what's going to show up in the web of your waiting mind and heart. And the word for prayer in Jesus' home language, Aramaic, was to set a trap for God. That's literally what it meant, to set a trap for God, to catch the thoughts of God. And so I began to experience this, and then I went to the Youth of Unity conference that summer, and as I've shared before, I was sitting there reading kind of a hippie comic book, and there was some very bizarre imagery, and this girl sat down next to me and started metaphysically interpreting it, and we started talking deeper and deeper until we finally we just didn't even talk. We literally knew what the other one was thinking, and people would walk up and they go, "What are you doing?" And we would just kind of laugh. And then she got up and walked away, and I went between the train cars and I looked out, and I knew I was connected. I remembered who I was. There is that within you that remembers who you are. And starting then is when I began the regular practice of meditating. And once you get a taste of it, you don't want to let it go. Once you get a taste of this something that's already inside of you that you brought in with you, you don't want to let it go. And all of the purpose of life is to experience that, but more than to experience it, to make it real. To make it real. And what's really real? Well, what's really real for you is to answer the question, am I leaving more of God in my world than was there before I got there? You say, well, how can there be more of God in my world? God is invisible spirit. How can I make more of God in my world? But what is God? But love. And love can take form. Certainly as a baby. Love between people. A company that serves people. A membership in an organization where you're truly serving. A forgiveness where it was hard to forgive. A poem. A song. Where can you leave more of God as love in your world than before you got there? If you want to know what's real, look into your heart. There's a touchstone there in your heart. There's a woman that I knew when she was in the Youth of Unity when I was running it, and I put on the International Youth of Unity conferences, and she was, I remember her as very creative, very vibrant soul. And then many years later, I was called to the ministerial program, the one that Mike Corbin just graduated from, and there was a panel of us, and we talked about the value of youth education in unity. And we all talked about our stories and how it affected us. Maybe we were teachers, or like myself and Lynn, grew up in unity. And she said, I've never told anyone this story, but it's on my heart to tell you. Now, at this time, this woman was an editor of Daily Word magazine. And she's gone on to do many other things since then. But she said, I grew up in Unity, and I went to the Youth of Unity conferences, and I had such profound experiences of light and life and love and truth. And then my life took a difficult turn. And I was in college a few years later, and I was so depressed, and I was going through such a tough time that I was ready to commit suicide. I had the means to do it. I decided that I was going to do it. And as I was ready to take my action, I remembered what dimly I could recall that I experienced at the Youth of Unity conference, the connection with Spirit, the love that I felt there. And at the outside chance that that was what was real and what I was experiencing now was not what's real, I lived to see another day. And she began to connect with her spiritual practices and reconnected with that. That was what was real, not the momentary difficulty she was experiencing. In fact, that love, which she could recall as a teenager, was the answer to her problem. Your illness, your problem in relationship, whatever it is, the answer is always love, but love is not a sentiment. Sentimental love, it's got its limits. True love is a vibrancy, an energy, and a force. It is a real power because it is the power that holds everything together. It is the power that created the entire universe and exists as the creative force behind all of the entire universe. And how do we get in touch with it? How do we discern it? Well, maybe just going into our hearts. Maybe imagining if my heart was open, what would I feel like? Well, how would I think? How would things look to me? How would I feel? And just getting into your heart. I've shared many times the time when everything in my life was turned upside down. And I sat on the edge of the bed and I just said, help. And I felt the warmth in my heart and the words from Ezekiel. Behold, I give you a new heart. I take away your heart of stone. I give you a heart of flesh. And I realized that all I had to do, I knew in that moment, was to go into my heart and I would know what to do. And to the extent that I would do that. But how can you do that? First of all, simplify. Make your life simpler. Jesus said, become as a child. The children were coming up to him and the disciples were upset and they said, parents, get these kids away. And Jesus said, no, let them come up to me. Suffer the little children to come up to me because of such are the kingdom of heaven. Without this spirit of becoming as a child, you cannot experience the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. Over and over again, he said, you must become as a child. And what is a child? Innocent, open, naive, perhaps, that is teachable. We think we have all the answers, and a child, more than anything else, is simple. And a child can discern. If we had a room full of people, and there was the president, and there was Lady Gaga, and there was Brad Pitt, there was a person of no stature who had her heart wide open, who would the child go up to? The child would gravitate to the person who has something of value for the child, or the person who has the energy for the child. That's what's real. That's what's real in your life. So the question is, are you going to leave more of God in the form of love, that is love outformed, in your world than was there before you got there? That is the definition, spiritually, of success. True success. Well, you remember that famous quote from Mother Teresa. They were saying, you haven't been successful because there's still poverty. She said, I was not called to be successful. I was called to be faithful. And that's true success. Leaving more of God there than was there before you got there. You know, faithfulness has a vision. Success has an agenda. Faithfulness is in the now moment. Success is locked up in time. Faithfulness is an experience. And success is just an outcome. You can't argue with an experience. And that experience is waiting for you. You have to call it forth. Just like I had to go into the woods and I had to sit there. So how do you do that? Take your daily word and take more than just 30 seconds with it. Do like my dad. He took 15 minutes every day with his daily word. And he sat there and he made it a part of himself. Take your professed beliefs and put them to work. In service. Moving from religion to spirituality. That's what the Pope is doing, and he's getting in trouble for it. I was serving in a church that invited the founder of Habitat for Humanity, Millard Fuller, to speak, and he said these words: "The family of God is divided and we can't agree about anything." So we kind of thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could agree on a hammer? After all, Jesus was a carpenter as a boy, and on the other hand, a hammer built his cross. So a hammer can either be used for good or ill. So we say, let's just use it for good. So in that way, we've been able to bridge all kinds of differences. We can use anybody. If you've got skills, we'll use you to help build a house. And if you don't, why? We'll use you as a bad example. We can use anybody in Habitat for Humanity. And with that philosophy, we've been able to bring people together. And, you know, I'm bringing this out because it's time for us, as a family of humanity, to make love formed, to make love real, to bring love into action. That's what the world's calling for. It's not calling for a better theology. It's not calling for a better belief system. We've tried the theologies, we've tried the belief systems, but love in action, that's what matters. That's where we need to be. It's the question is, so you're faced with a problem. What does love demand here? What does love demand here? The desire of your heart to love will generate that action that you need to take in order to transform the situation. Every Sunday morning, my prayer is, give me the food, the spiritual food to feed these souls. Before you walk into that situation, say, how can I make love real? What does this soul need from me? How can I don't know how to love this person, God, but you do. So show me how you love this person so that I can love like that. Generate magnetically that energy of love through your desire. Desire is the most powerful force in your soul. Your soul has free will. It's the great gift from God. And your free will operates as desire. And we can desire all manner of things. But if we desire love, how can I love this person? I don't know how to love this person. Have you ever done that? Have you ever been in a situation that was just absolutely impossible? You were in a log jam. You couldn't find your way through the situation. And then you said, I want to love here. I don't know how. I don't know what to do. But I'm willing. It's like in a log jam, there's a key log. You know? The old loggers used to find the key log. And once they got the key log out of there, the whole thing would break loose. It's that queen bee concept. You know, when people who are beekeepers need to move the hive, they find the queen bee and they move the queen from here to there and the rest of the hive just follows. That consciousness of love, that desire in your heart will find that core concept that will move the energy of what it is that you're facing. It may be an insight, it may be a revelation. It may be simply letting go of something that you've just been holding on to for the longest time, and you don't need to hold on to it anymore. Where can you move into love in action? How can you find out what's real? By simplifying, by bringing things down to the level of simplicity, eliminating the things that really aren't important. The people who've had near-death experiences, the people who've had miraculous healings of terminal illnesses, according to Harvard, are the people who have reprioritized their lives and they are no longer interested in meeting the societal norms, to meeting the expectations of the niceties of their community expectancy. They're instead coming from what's really real and living from the inside out and living their lives from what's inside of themselves. And it takes courage because you aren't always going to be affirmed. You have to be willing to take that step and let people be where they are with it. I remember once I was in a situation where I had to make some tough choices, and I was guided to make a sign, let the chips fall where they may. I'm going to take this action in love, and people are going to do what they're going to do with it, and it's not my responsibility. My responsibility is be sure that I'm coming from my heart. Be sure that I'm coming from love. Because you see, love isn't always nice. It's not always sentimental. It's not always popular. But love is powerful. Love is transformative. Love is healing. And love synthesizes and blends and merges and transforms the energy that is found there. So the question is, how can I put love into action? How can I take that circumstance in my life and put it to work in such a way that it makes a difference in the world? That I can leave more love in my world after I'm here than before I got here. That's really the only measure of success that matters. So, I don't know. I feel right now this is the time for us to move into a meditation. Then I have something I want to share with you from Jesus. But just take a deep breath and move into this consciousness. The energy's here to support you. And just say, I am willing to come from love. I'm willing to come from my heart. I may not personally know how to love, but I am willing to love in this circumstance. Where there are people that are hard for me to love. Where there are situations where it's hard for me to remember who I am. Let me remember that I am the love of God in action. Let me remember that love is a dynamic force. That I am not limited. To remember that the 40 books of the law were reduced to one word by Jesus. Love. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. In these words are fulfilled the entirety of the law and the prophets. God, I know that my love in my heart is not static. It does not stay in one place. It's constantly moving. It is a molten, powerful force that moves forth, that gathers up the energy and then moves it forth in a positive way. Let me be in the flow of divine love. Let divine love be the who that I am. Let divine love flow forth healing, harmonizing, bringing into manifestation my world in the highest and best way. Thank you, dear God. And so it is. Amen. Well, there's a powerful energy here, and we can tap into it. And it is the energy of divine love. That's why we join together in the spiritual community, so that we can support each other, and so that we can deal with the differences between us as well. If everybody liked the same things and acted the same way, it would be so easy. We wouldn't have to exercise this part of ourselves. But it's the very differences and the difficulties that we face as souls that makes us move into this consciousness of divine love. And so we move into this time of giving with a consciousness of love. I'm going to take a deep breath and let it out. And know that everything that you need in this moment can be reduced to one thing, which is love. Every need you have, every thing that you're holding in your heart, it's all it all rolls into love. And so just imagine yourself moving into your heart. And if you have anything in your hand, set it down, leave it alone, and move into your heart. In the heart is everything you need. There's nothing more important than this right now. And as you move deeper and deeper into your heart, there's a quickening and awakening there. A feeling of all is well. A flow, a gathering together and a release. Gather into your heart all the people and all the needs. Take them into your heart and then let them out. Release. Realize that your heart is not a static state or a place of no movement, but it's a constant flowing, an ebb, a flow, a gathering, a releasing, a dynamic, powerful peace, a light that shines. Jesus took the 40 law books of his culture and he reduced them all to one word: love. He said the entire law and all the prophets were contained within that one higher truth, which is love. Know that your heart is the touchstone which can discern what's real, what's true, and what's needed in any situation. Realize that when there's differences between you and people or you and circumstances, your heart synthesizes, blends and merges, and lifts up into that place beyond which might be any sense of separation, into that oneness, that peace that passes understanding, that flowing, light-filled, dynamic, peace-filled presence. Everything in life is calling forth love. Every person in life is calling forth love. If love is the answer, then what is the question? In every circumstance, we are called to leave more love than was there beforehand, to create more love than there was before. And love is dynamic. It is not passive. It is not a sentiment. It is a force. Love does not demand circumstances change. Love is its own truth, its own reality. Let me feel this love. Let me be this love. Flowing. Flowing. Flowing in love. Lifting up in love. We are ready to embark on a new journey. We're ready to move into a new place within our experience, one that does not demand that circumstances change for love to be. That love is such a dynamic force. Love will have its own way. Love is enough. Love is complete. And so it is.